I hereby call the Tuesday, July 9th, 2024, Arcata Fire District regular meeting to order. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would the clerk please take the roll call?
Director Arcata is absent. Director Johnson?
Here.
Director Maynard?
Here.
Director Mendoza?
Here.
President Loudon.
Here. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move. Second.
Is there any discussions or comments from the board on the agenda? There are no comments from the directors. Is there any discussion or comments from the public on the agenda? There are no public comments. We have a motion and a second. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Director Arcata is absent. Director Johnson?
Here.
Director Maynard?
Here.
Director Mendoza?
Here.
President Loudon.
Here.
Motion carries.
Hold on one second.
Hold on, we need to back up to the special presentation.
Good. Just above that.
Oh. Pardon me, I
You want to
apologize.
start it out or you want
Sure,
me to? Okay.
sure. So we have a special presentation tonight to a member of the community that actually saved several businesses from a burning from a fire. I forget what the date was on it, but Director Maynard's gonna present our first ever community service award.
Oh, look at that. Come on up here, Andrew. Come on.
All right.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Oh, my gosh. So I've known Andrew for a little while. Our daughters are best friends. So this is nice for me. I'm going to read this out loud. Dear Andrew, the Arcata Fire District is devoted to fostering community-oriented partnerships and building positive relationships with the public by collaborating with the community to protect the lives, environment, and property of the communities we serve. We achieve this by recognizing and honoring citizens and groups who perform acts of extraordinary bravery, selflessly help others, or engage in the commendable deeds that exceed societal expectations. The Community Service Award was created to honor and acknowledge valued citizens and groups who demonstrate meritorious action which resulted in the saving of a life, the reduction of serious injury, or the reduction of property loss. On Wednesday, June 12th, 2024, at approximately 6:30 p.m., Arcata Fire District was dispatched to a commercial structure fire at the 1500 block of Nursery Way, where light smoke was seen coming from the commercial structure. Upon arrival, fire personnel were contacted by neighboring business owner, Andrew Jordan, of Surfside Sips, who advised he had entered the business and extinguished a lithium-ion battery that was burning. Andrew is commended for his swift actions, which likely saved the entire building, its contents, and numerous businesses within the occupancy. On behalf of the Arcata Fire District, it is my pleasure to honor and recognize you as the first ever Community Service Award recipient. Yes, you did.
So
Thanks, you guys.
Yeah,
one of
you
the
step
traditions
in.
we have is handing out challenge coins. So this is supposed to resemble a very large challenge coin. So
I accept. Thank you, guys.
thank
That's
you.
really cool.
Thank you.
All right. If you don't mind me, I'll use-
Chris, you got to go back for a picture.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, get
Wait, don't go.
picture.
Let me let you let that go for a second. Show us fast. We'll do it.
There you go.
Beautiful.
Sit down. I don't want to pour strump and hold it up.
1, 2, 3. Beautiful.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you soon.
That's a bad day.
Oh, that's a great photo.
All right.
Continuing. Public comment association reports. Any person may address the district board on any subject pertaining to district business which is not listed on the agenda. This comment is provided by the Ralph M. Brown Open Meeting Act and may be limited to 3 minutes for any person addressing the board. Any request that requires board action may be set by the board for a future agenda or referred to staff. Are there any public comments? Please stand and come to the podium and state your name and provide us with your input.
Thank you. My name is Joanne McGarry. I speak up at city council meetings often, including the planning commission, which is meeting right now. But I felt it important for me to be here tonight because I am a caring and active citizen in Arcata. I've lived here 12 years. I just recently moved, and I am very interested in housing and who oversees the housing for some of the plain old poor folk in town, and trying to understand the delegation of duties and such. Where I was living was a flat in an old Victorian, and the fire department did come and inspect that as opposed to the city's new building inspection. I now live in a multi-unit apartment complex, and I'm trying to figure out who's responsible for that. And in learning a lot about the challenges for the fire district and all, I'm just very interested in making sure that those of us who want to live safely and comfortably in our community, even if we don't have a lot of money, that we make sure that we have housing that is safe, sane, and affordable. Those are the 3 criteria. Affordable is not the only thing we need to think about. Safe and sane is that. And so one of my concerns is in some of the new construction, such as Sorrel Place. I know someone who lives there on the 3rd floor, and the means of escape for the people on the 3rd floor in the balcony of that person is a rope ladder type thing that can be tossed over the balcony if that person can't get out into the hallway. So I'm just really kind of concerned about future construction of buildings and how really safe and sane they really are for people, in addition to being affordable. And then some of the older construction buildings, like what I'm currently living in, wanting just to make sure they're maintained in a way that's safe and sane. And so I appreciate what the fire department does and their challenges and your first response to so many issues that we have in our community. But as we move forward, I'm just really concerned that new development might just be shiny objects, and there's a lot more to it than that, and that I really want to make sure people like me, can stay living here safely and sanely, as well as affordably. So thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Local 4981 have a report.
Yes, so hopefully you guys had a chance to read our first board report that we submitted. So I'll just kind of gloss over and open up for questions if you guys have any. So I had the chance to tag along on a meeting with City Manager Karen Deemer. I learned a whole lot about the city and some of the stuff that they go through. I helped provide a little bit of historical reference with the district and some of the challenges that we've gone through in our most recent history. It was a great meeting. Happy to be able to tag along with that. I had a chance encounter with a second district assembly candidate, Mike Greer. He was at the Eureka Fair, and I ended up chatting with him for about an hour. talked loosely about his campaign, his general knowledge of the second district, and then if he had any idea what was going on with the current events and challenges that we are facing. I gave him a couple of snippets, enough for him to be interested to come and talk to me again about it. So I'm working on getting another meeting with him in the upcoming future. So if you guys are interested in asking questions by using me as a proxy, I'll let you know when that meeting's gonna happen. And then throw a huge thank you out to Katie for organizing our participation in the Pony Express Days Parade. We had a great turnout. It was the first time that we had a turnout that large in a really long time. And everybody had a lot of fun, and the public loved seeing us. All of our members conducted physicals to ensure that we're all fit for duty. We did it right here in the station. It was pretty intensive. So just kind of an update on things that were going on. And as of that time when I wrote this, we had covered CAL FIRE Trinidad for 7 days on a J239 while they had CAL FIRE had strike teams out of the area. So I'll open it up if you guys have any questions, and then that's all I have.
Are there any questions from board members?
Thank you for your great work. We really appreciate working with you.
No problem at all.
ABFA Association Report.
Yeah, sure. And thank you for the opportunity. For me, we had about, I wrote 14 hours. It was actually 20 hours. I got notified that after I sent this out. Some of the CPR training was experienced this last month. VLU training for May, we actually did wildland fire oversight, scene communication, safety protocols, and possible VLU response and limitations. Basically what we can do and what we should not do relative to the wildland fire. We had basically 32 students at 2 CPR classes in May, very well attended, and the classes are going real well. The Berg Foundation grant for the slide-in pump is still pending. They're trying to get their reviews done under Berg. And basically, we actually had a hot water expansion tank fail upstairs. Water was leaking down the wall into the Indian Bay. We got that fixed fairly quickly. We isolated it, and a little concerned about the wall. We're looking at that to see if there's actually any damage to it, but we'll look into that. And that's it. Good. Thank you.
Thank you. Closed session.
Can I just make one comment?
Yes.
Just for Joanne, when we come later on in the meeting under district business, there's going to be an agenda item to discuss the grand jury report. Many of the items that you talked about will be discussed under that agenda item.
Closed session. We have a closed session this evening. At any time during the regular session, the board may adjourn to closed session to consider existing or anticipated litigation, liability claims, real property negotiations, license and permit determinations, threats to security, public employee appointments, personnel matters, evaluations and discipline, labor negotiations, or to discuss with legal counsel matters within the attorney-client privilege. This evening, we have a closed session conference on real property negotiations, so we will step away now. It is 6:25, and we are returning to our general meeting. And we have nothing to report out from the closed session. Consent calendar. Consent calendar items are considered routine and are acted upon by the board with a single action. Members of the audience wishing to provide public input may request that the board remove the item from the consent calendar. Comments may be limited to 3 minutes. Is there any board or public member that would like a specific item removed from the consent calendar? Is there anyone from the public? Any board members? I want consent calendar item number 7 removed, and we'll bring it back up next meeting. That was changes to our travel receipts and those sorts of things, our travel reimbursement. And Jason had provided some comments. He wanted to edit some changes, and I have them written down, but I can't speak to them. And since he's not feeling well today, I thought this was not critical time-wise, and we could just bring it back.
It would be helpful for me to know why we're doing that. Just, I'm fine with it coming back next meeting, but why are we doing that?
So before it was a revision to the policy, but after speaking with Director Arcata, there was some confusion with the language that was in it. He asked that, he was hoping to be here, obviously, to have a discussion about it so that we could, or the board could revise the language to add into the policy.
No, my question is, why is staff bringing that why does staff want to change the policy?
It was a efficiency process for our business manager. The way we had been doing business for processing travel requests was just old and clunky and did not work well. And Katie was able to follow up with the GSA policy and found a better method of going through it afterwards, after the fact.
I'll just say I'm looking for transparency, so that's why I'm asking.
Sure. Yeah, that's the reason for it, was to make it more efficient for the business manager to be able to process.
Okay. We'll look at it next month then.
Are there any other comments from the board? And if not, I will entertain a motion and a second to adopt the consent calendar.
Absent number 7.
Absent number 7.
I'll move to adopt the consent calendar, items 1 through 6.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Director Arcata is absent. Director Johnson?
Yes.
Director Maynard?
Yes.
Director Mendoza?
Yes.
President Loudenslager?
Yes.
Motion carries.
District business. Review of the grand jury, the civil grand jury report titled Arcata Fire District, Dwindling Resources Equals Dwindling Services. And there's a staff report.
So as many of us have heard in the media, the civil grand jury provided a report on the status of the Arcata Fire District. Historically, the grand jury is an investigative body having the purpose of detection and correction of flaws within government. The primary function of the grand jury is to examine all aspects of county and city governments, including special districts and joint powers agencies, to see that the monies are handled judiciously and that all accounts are properly audited. In general, the civil grand jury seeks to assure honest, efficient government in the best interest of the people. And this is pursuant to California Penal Code sections 933 and 933.05. The Arcata Fire District Board of Directors must respond to the enumerated findings and recommendations within specific statutory guidelines, which is within 90 days. Staff recommends that the board review the report, compose a response within 90 days, and submit the board's response as directed in the report.
Are there questions or comments from directors with regard to the report and/or our response. So just for the public and for the rest of the board, there were a number of findings and a number of recommendations, and the grand jury asked us to provide a response to those, and I authored the first draft. We have 90 days, so we had a couple weeks before this meeting, so I took it on and wrote my thoughts down. Those are my personal ones. And the rest of the board certainly should weigh in and provide either edits or their individual comments on components of both the report, the jury report, and our response.
Well, I thank you for doing that. I really like what you wrote. I have a few maybe additions and comments that might take, depending on how much discussion we have, I mean, it would take me maybe 10 minutes to outline them, but rather, I don't know if other directors have, I mean, we could try to do this, hash it out at the meeting here and see. I would recommend we see if we can hash it out, and if it looks
Okay.
like it's going to take a long time, we could come back. But I think it's an important issue. A lot of the issues that were brought out in the grand jury report are critically important to our constituents, and I think it is good to have a public discussion.
I agree. I think you should say it all.
Okay, you want to start with your comments on,
Okay, well, I'm looking down to, could I just ask, is there anybody in here that has not seen the grand jury report? If so, we could quickly read the grand jury finding. Okay, so we're starting from where everybody has heard it, so we can just go to our responses then. I'm looking down at F2. The board agrees in part with this finding, currently staffing 3 stations, 3 engines, and I would insert with only 2 firefighters per each engine, because everywhere I go, and I was just up in Oregon in a university community called Forest Grove, and it's about the size of Arcata, and they had 4 in their engine driving by there. So we have 2. I think that's something that every time we have this discussion, we need to point out that 2 firefighters per engine is not normal. So as we are compared with other agencies, so I would just like to put in there, either was it the NFPA and industry standards are 3 firefighters, or maybe something parenthetical in there, or something
Okay.
just to point that out. And also, I think that the industry standard would be 4 per truck, correct? 3 per engine, 4 per truck would be a minimum.
4 for an engine, 5 for a truck.
Yeah, but I look everywhere I go, and I don't see. It was a well. I understand that, but we have to be realistic too. I think if we ask for 4 for an engine, I don't think we're ever going to.
That's just if you're going to reference an FPA.
Right, but everywhere I go, and I've been all over, and I always look, and what I see, whether that's accurate or not, I see at least 3 in a truck. And last week when I was up in Forest Grove, I saw 4, and that was the first time I'd seen 4 in quite a while. But that could, I don't know how many stations they run, but anyway, I think that's an important point. The other thing, when we go down to the on F2, when we look at the second indented, where it says a fire in the mid-rise residential dorms under construction at Cal Poly Humboldt and mixed-use buildings envisioned in Arcata's gateway plan would exceed the reasonable capacity of Arcata Fire Protection District and mutual aid partners. I would add many who are unpaid volunteers.
Okay.
I think we, you know.
And you've written that down on there. So
I have,
So I don't
yeah.
have to take notes right now.
Right, and it's on the video too. And, yeah, because the point is that we would be bringing various different, our backups have various degrees of training and capabilities. I know I was having lunch I met one of the chiefs of one of the adjacent volunteer fire departments. It's been a couple of years ago when we're starting, even before the recent discussions, and he was telling me that he said, I don't think I want my volunteers, we're not trained to go do, stairs. So they were questioning whether, so far they have not, I haven't heard them pulling out, but he was telling me that they were very hesitant to be considered part of that backup that we're mentioning here. So I think that should be, something should be in there to make that clear.
Okay.
And then down to the staging for the potential fire on the Cal Poly Humboldt campus during the recent protest involved bringing the Fortuna ladder truck to McKinneyville. Station and engines and firefighters from Sonoma County. Arrival of these resources would not be timely for I would say, sudden emergency event such as an earthquake or major fire. I think it's just helpful to put what types of emergencies that we would probably not expect that those assets would come. So, going down to F3, the Arcata Fire Protection District Board agrees in part with this finding. And I'm just going to read it here because just to keep it in context, the grand jury said California State Polytechnic University Humboldt receives services but is not required to financially contribute to the Arcata Fire District. This results in Arcata Fire District provided services without receiving compensation, further diminishing Arcata Fire District resources. The answer, our draft response is the AFPD board agrees in part with this finding. Cal Poly Humboldt does not pay ad valorem property tax, but does pay the 2006 benefit assessment and 2020 Measure F special tax. I don't believe they pay the 2020 Measure F special tax, and my understanding is they do pay the benefit assessment, but it's a very small amount, and I think if we're going to put that in here, it's a token amount from my understanding, so we should put a specific amount in there. What's like $30,000-$40,000 or something like that they're contributing.
It's like 21,000.
Is it 21,000? Yeah. So
Between the two, is that between
no, I don't.
Measure F and the
They're not paying Measure F tax because that's property tax. So I don't believe that's.
No, that's a parcel.
Yeah, I don't think they're
fee.
paying that.
Okay.
Well, if I may interrupt.
Are they?
Per our discussion with previous Chief McDonald and the business manager, they do pay a small amount. It's not much.
Yeah, but it's the benefit assessment.
They pay the benefit assessment,
That's-
and I believe they do pay a portion for the special tax.
Really?
believe
I mean,
so.
what's the criteria then paying the portion?
I'll have to look, but.
So that's something I think it's important that we really put in there because that's something the public needs to know.
Sure, well, I can confirm it, but.
So I'd like a specific amount of the benefit assessment tax that they pay and also Measure F tax if they do pay. I would strike the last sentence that says CPH staff has been working with AFPD staff to confirm the list of parcels is accurate for fiscal year 2025. I don't know. I would just strike that. I don't feel like they've been working with this. I mean, maybe they have with the staff level, but when we did, it wasn't really, that didn't really describe my experience. Going on to,
Let's
oh,
just check back in with what are your staff feelings about perceptions with working with
They
them?
have been. They were, so prior to Becky leaving, she flat out told us that they have been working as far as trying to identify parcels and that. I mean, that was as recent as 2 weeks ago, she was telling me that.
So is it identify parcels that they would not pay for, or parcels that they would add payment to?
Accurate counts on parcels is what they were
Yeah,
trying to establish.
I don't know that. I'd still recommend taking that off because I don't know that that's really relevant to the grand jury finding, but that's up to you. Again, anyone stop me at any point here that wants to put something in here. I'm just trying to go fast so I don't.
Right, I
be
appreciate that,
efficient.
and I just wanted to get staff's impression
Sure.
on removing that.
The other thing.
I
sorry.
think Chris had his hand up.
I can confirm that we direct bill Cal Poly, not through the tax collector, and yes, they pay on Measure F.
Okay, and I'd love to know how much.
That I don't know.
Was that negotiated, or was that, there's just some maximum payment that they,
I don't know the answer.
yeah,
I
okay.
think it's because it's a special assessment. It's different than the property tax.
Yeah,
So
it's not.
they're
There's a
not-
maximum.
Yeah, they don't pay property tax, but it's not technically classified as a property tax, so they would be subject to it.
Okay. And we're looking at F4, the Measure F special tax will expire in 2023, which will eliminate over 30% of the Arcata Fire District revenue. And I'm not sure, there's a little typo here where you have response 3 went after finding 4. So,
The R1, R2, and R3, those are part of finding F4. That's a direct copy from the grand jury report.
oh, okay,
So they're saying that finding 4 refers to or relates to recommendation 1, recommendation 2, and recommendation 3.
okay.
That's where that parenthetic R1, R2, and R3 came from.
So where I think it would be helpful to put in here somewhere that Measure F was planned without the knowledge of the significant increase of higher buildings that have been built by Cal Poly Humboldt and the city of Arcata Gateway. So when the district staff kind of came up with what we need to get back on the road and to staff up, no one envisioned or knew about 7-story tall residence halls, that will contain like 1,000 students. That was like, no one had any idea. So this has completely changed our operation, and it will continue to make major changes in our operation. So in terms of training our staff to deal with those high-rise buildings, purchasing equipment that will handle them, such as an aerial truck. Also, just having enough personnel to respond to emergencies to 7-story tall buildings. None of that was even thought of, at least by any of us that were around at the time when we put Measure F into place. So I think that's an important thing to put out there so that when we go back to, when we start talking to the citizens about increasing these revenues, we need to put it in the context of, that things changed beyond our control and are continuing to change beyond the district's control. But at the end of the day, we have a job to do for them, and we have insufficient funding to do it, which the grand jury has certainly outlined very well.
May I,
Sure.
just for 1 second? You said that they're trying to know the number of parcels, the accurate number of parcels. Is it less than 20, more than 50, more than 100? Do you have any idea of how many parcels CPH is made up of?
I'd be speculating if I said. Becky, it's something she's still working on, so she's still been having discussions with Cal Poly, trying to straighten it out.
Okay. And then my follow-up question, if they are paying Measure F fees, are they doing it under the commercial? On these headings on page 63, there's all these parcel use categories, and I'm just wondering, so that the public knows, we should know how they're being
Right. No,
assess these Measure F
I can get
fees.
that from them, find out how they're assessing it.
Okay, because if it's commercial or multifamily residential, like, it'd be interesting to know.
So now I'm looking at page 70, and I'm looking at the, from the bottom, 1, 2, 3 paragraphs up from the bottom, where it says it would be desirable, it says, just to put it into context, I'll read the paragraph. Further, the appropriate trusted expert, subject matter expert to recommend station equipment and staffing and the standards of coverage is the Arcata Fire Protection District Fire Chief. The appropriate local legislative body to adopt the recommendation is the AFPD Board. It would be desirable to have those recommendations subsequently adopted by the city and county, and I would include and Cal Poly Humboldt, but the district has no authority to compel cooperation. So
You just want to have CPH
just
added
add
to that.
CPH in there. And the other is the last paragraph about development impact fees. The cost of infrastructure can be accomplished using development impact fees. I don't think so. Development impact fees, from my understanding, and it's been a while since I've looked at them, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding, development impact fees are one-time fees, and it's like a supplemental fee, so if we do development impact fees, for instance, that buys a ladder truck, those, we're not going to have any sustaining revenues to pay the staff to staff the ladder truck. So I can't agree. I would say we should really look at what a development impact, maybe a statement such as, we would look into how much development impact fees could help. But I think that saying that it could be a cost, our infrastructure can be accomplished using the impact fees, I don't think it's going to work.
It is a one-time fee,
Right. So,
but it's on all new developments, so assuming that if you were to continue to develop, it would be.
yeah, I know way back when I looked, I was with a group that looked at it for the local here, and they're designed for big developments.
Right.
If you have a big development, a big Del Webb retirement community, the impact fees will give you enough to build a fire station and to put in a sewer. But as we're doing the incremental, one building here and 5 years down the road, another building, it's not going to have a major impact on solving our problem, which is personnel and equipment costs. At least, it could help in some of the long range things, but and it's one of the tools. But I don't think that it will accomplish everything that we need to do what we have to for the job that we have to provide, the service we have to provide. And in the last sentence, special districts cannot directly implement a development impact fee, rather the district would require from the city of Arcata and Humboldt County, and I maybe just insert CPH again to approve such fees. And I guess CPH would be the point there would be that they would contribute if as they're building more buildings. I think that 330 Laurel Drive is going to be taken down, and they're going to put a parking structure as they continue to, as Cal Poly Humboldt continues to build buildings. I would hope that there'd be a voluntary contribution from the state towards the infrastructure that they are utilizing. And I'm going to page 71. The fire district explore with Cal Poly Humboldt opportunities for the university to offer financial assistance or establish reimbursement fees in recognition of the impacts of its tax exempt status, to be initiated by December 31st, 2024. I'm not sure.
That's why I put down for Chief Emmons. I had no idea. Well, at the Fire District Association of California, there was a consulting, I'll call it a liaison. It was an individual. I didn't go to that presentation. Chief Emmons did, and he's had some conversations with him, but it was a person that interacts between fire districts, other special districts, and legislators and other entities like the CSU system. And I have not participated in those conversations and didn't feel comfortable putting anything in here. But, I don't think my or the chief's calling the procurement office or a vice president's office will get us much traction. So I think we're going to have to pursue some other alternatives, and I didn't have a good handle on what should be put in here.
And I don't really have any good, I've not come up, maybe more thinking, but at least in my thinking thus far, I don't have anything that I can offer. The only other thing that I can throw in is that the district, I just wonder if that draft EIR letter that we wrote to the trustees of the California State University system when they were looking at the draft EIR for the tall residence halls, it would be helpful, I think, for public knowledge if there would be an appropriate place in our response to include that.
The whole letter? Or
the whole letter, just because that's the story, and it was printed once, and I think if we went out and did a poll, very few citizens would probably even remember it. So because I just think it would be helpful because the letter really outlines a lot of the important issues that the grand jury has brought forth here. But that's just my recommendation. And that is all I have.
Director Maynard?
I think it's important that the public knows that this board has been working on making sure the finances have been in order and are going to stay stable into the future, and that we are already working on a replacement for Measure F. So we're trying to get ahead of this as much as we can. It's going to be, ultimately it's going to be up to the public to vote for a special assessment and a new Measure F to get this done. That's all I have.
Director Johnson, do you have any editorial suggestions or other comments?
No, the only one, the last one, the R5, where you have for Chief Emmons. I mean, I do think it's important to state that, not to sling mud or anything, but we did have an agreement with the college for mutual aid and stuff, and they canceled it. So,
Okay,
while we are, I guess, maybe we're continuing to reach out to them. I don't know, but if they won't talk to us about it, then there's not much that we can really do with that. And that's a tough one to address. But we historically have always had it. It was their option to cancel, which they did.
okay, well, we can craft something over between this meeting and the next meeting, and I
Yeah.
can, if you'll give me your notes, and I can add those in here, and we'll bring them back for at least one more review.
Yeah, and then I guess my only other comment would be to add on to what Randy said about how, when we did measure F, there was, no one even knew that it was going to convert to a Cal Poly either, so
yeah.
it was still just Humboldt State, hunky-dory, everything status quo. So, that could also be some additional information as to, why
Okay.
and how we came up with what we did. But also, I think it's important to reference Measure R, right? R, is that the one before? Failed because it didn't have a sunset clause, and that we had to come back with that and in order to get it to pass. So I think, the public is, they vote for certain things, and we can only kind of, move within those parameters. But they voted R down, which didn't have a sunset clause in it.
Okay, I can include that in there. So I will just, for the board and the public, provide some of my thinking. And with regard to Measure F and the benefit assessment, I definitely think that, and whether we can do a Measure F that doesn't have a sunset clause, that's new information, so that's troubling. But I do believe that the board has an obligation to try to make an argument to the community that we need to have an inflation adjustment and then an inflation clause in the benefit assessment, so that as it moves forward, it grows. And I realize that this is a bit of the back of the envelope, but if you take our $1.4 million that we get from the benefit assessment and plug that into one of the government CPI calculators, 2006 to 2023, we'd be getting another $725,000 each year, which would be enough to put three people on at least one of our stations, maybe a little bit more than that. The other thing, in my view, that has to happen with the benefit assessment is it caps out at 10 units, and the units are units, not square feet. And we have apartment buildings that have many more than 10 units in them. Some of them have actually combined parcels, so they've gone from, they've built on 3 parcels and gone through the legal process of making it a single parcel, and then have, in excess of 100 units on it. And we need to get a benefit assessment that captures those. And I don't have any idea what additional revenue that would supply, whether that would be enough to put 3 people on the second engine. I don't know, but I think that needs to be done. But my own personal opinion, and this is as much around concerns about having the measures turned down by voters, I've thought that our reworking of Measure F, renewal of Measure F, and reworking of the benefit assessment have to stand alone and support 2 or 3, preferably 3, firefighters on an engine, and not be directed at the high-rise, the mid-rise buildings. To add that in, to add mid-rise gateway buildings that haven't been built yet into a special taxes, and spread it evenly, and ask people in mobile homes and 1,100 square foot homes in Sunnybray that we want to jack up the special tax by 2 or 3 times, potentially, to provide a ladder truck and 4 people on an engine for mid-rise apartments. I think what I worry about is that it would fail, and so I think we need to design a measure that gives us stability just above where we are now, and then look for additional sources of money for both the infrastructure and the staffing for mid-rise buildings. And my idea, and I can think about, how we want to write this, but on the last paragraph on page 70, and this is, once again, I wrote this, other directors may not share this view, but I put as a first principle that the new development must pay for its own way. And I don't think that we should be asking the existing residents to pay for that extra level of support that those mid-rise buildings require. And in my own mind, and I've given it to Chief Emmons so he could copy it and give it to the other directors, but I had a little booklet that I brought back from the special district training I went to on special district revenues. And they specifically talked about development impact fees being used to develop infrastructure for fire departments. And Randy, Director Mendoza is correct. You can't use it for staffing and for ongoing expenses, but you can use it for building stations, building training facilities, buying a ladder truck. All of those sorts of things are eligible. There's another element in California law and municipal practice, and it's called an enhanced infrastructure finance district. And the community development director had actually talked about that in one of our meetings quite some time ago. And what essentially you're doing is, when you form one of those districts, you borrow from the county or some other government entity the money you need to build your infrastructure, and then you pay it back with the taxes that you receive. And my thought, and whether it's legal to do it with a development impact fee and an enhanced infrastructure finance district or not, whether that's a legal connection that can be made, I would have to talk with finance director from the city of Arcata or our attorney. I'm stretched out here on this. But my thoughts were that City of Arcata should form, the City of Arcata wants to cooperate with us, that the City of Arcata should form an enhanced infrastructure finance district that will provide us with all the money we need to build a training station, training facility, ladder truck, if that's what the SOC and the chief says we need. And if we need a new station, or we need to rebuild Mad River Station to accommodate a ladder truck, then those things would all get incorporated in that. and the city can do the infrastructure, enhanced infrastructure finance district, let us use the money, and they can repay it with their development impact fees on the buildings they anticipated. And in my view, that's the city cooperating with us. And if the city's the one that is doing the zoning change, and for us to assume the risk of trying to borrow the millions of dollars that would be required is, I think, untenable. And to ask the public for it in a public bond, I think, is untenable. So that was my thought of moving forward on this. And then I had imagined that for the financing of staffing, that we would be looking at a different special tax measure. And the special taxes, whether we can have two of them running at the same time, how we would combine them. But a benefit assessment requires it requires engineering and specific levels of benefit are attributable to different kinds of parcels, depending on what happens on that parcel. And it all has to be structured based on benefits. A special tax, on the other hand, does not have to be structured based on equal benefits across the entire population. If we made a benefit assessment that only assessed the tall buildings for staffing for a ladder truck, then individuals in those buildings could complain if those staff and that equipment was used elsewhere in the district. A special tax, in contrast, we could design a special tax that applied only to 4 to 7 story buildings, and that would bring in revenue. We would still have somewhat of a deficit between the time construction started and we would need staffing. So there would be, in my mind, there'd still be a shortfall there. But what you're hearing is my thought process on how to, so I see, 3 tiers of initiatives. One is to stabilize our benefit assessment in Measure F, get those stabilized so that our staff and our services to the community, our status quo isn't threatened, and then work on methods and methodologies, actions to get the infrastructure built. And then a third element would be looking at finding the revenues for staffing. And once again, in my opinion, as only one director, is that those revenues have to come from the new buildings.
Can I just add, you said something that really struck with me, and you talked about.
Is good or bad?
No, it's good.
Okay.
Well, no, it's you mentioned the folks in the mobile homes, and just about, if I just going up, I think most, if not all, of the mobile homes in the city, in the fire district. Well, let's just say there are 3 very large mobile home parks in my division. I represent these people, and when we were going about and talking to the public about Measure F, those were the folks that I had to look at. I had to talk to them about why to do Measure F. Why should they vote for Measure F? And that was a tough one because a lot of those people are very low income. Meanwhile, I also had discussions with Cal Poly Humboldt administrators. They're bringing, the state of California put close to $500 million into this community to convert Cal Poly Humboldt, to convert Humboldt State to Cal Poly Humboldt. I understand the state, and when I asked the administrator that I met, I understand the state doesn't pay property taxes, but why could not the state of California look at the unusual circumstance of putting almost $500 million into a small community of 18,000 people and pay towards the infrastructure, because my constituents can't afford it. And that's my job, that's our job, is to advocate for them. And please, so when I asked when I was given an audience with administrators at Cal Poly Humboldt, I didn't get an answer. And when I asked our state elected representatives, I didn't get an answer. So I'm going to ask again. I would love to hear an answer to that. Why can't the state include in those plans to cover at least some of their infrastructure costs? Because our little community can't afford it. So.
Are there any more comments from the directors? I'll then invite public comment. Is there anyone from the public that wanted to speak on our report or our responses to the grand jury? Seeing there's none. Oh, well, if you want, stand up.
I was hoping I'd have company up here at the podium. My name's Joanne McGarry, and you said something, I don't know how to pronounce your last name.
Loudenslager?
Loudenslager, Director Loudenslager, that the city of Arcata made the decision to proceed with rezoning to allow for multi-story buildings. And the district, the fire district, has to assume the risk. And from the get-go, and I just need to say this whole planning process, especially for the gateway plan, forget Cal Poly for right now. It's sort of atrocious that they, in my opinion, don't respect the needs of the community to fund decently the infrastructure needs when they are, pounding their chest and boasting about increasing the student enrollment and all down there. But the city of Arcata designed and went through during a pandemic period, came out in December, I think, of 2022 with the gateway plan, to a surprise of many of us who live in that area, talking about multi-story buildings and the need for infill, and we're desperate for housing. But I go back to what I said earlier tonight, that the people of our community and the people who work for your fire district, we deserve to have safe, sane, and affordable housing. And before we do anything to, break ground on huge buildings, they really needed to have talked to you, like people needed to have talked to the tribes about a lot of the issues that tribal people are weighing in on now, because people go ahead and make these plans, and the city of Arcata did it with the Gateway District, and then all of a sudden we're saying, wait a minute, are you considering what's going on in our community in terms of the need to be able to provide services for all that huge construction that you're doing? So I think the education of the people in the community and putting pressure on the powers that be that are making these decisions without really being as transparent as they could be in the beginning with the citizenry or the service district, I really do think they need to be called out. And I'm really sorry that you're having to deal with this tragedy of things already being built before we have the necessary equipment and personnel to, fight fires in them or, respond adequately. It's just, I'm really disappointed that people were moving forward with this without thinking about you and thinking about me and others in the community who want to just have safe and sane and affordable places to live.
Thank you. Correspondence and communications. We received thank you cards and pictures from McKinleyville Head Start, and thank you to Captain Marcus Lillard and Engineer Ryan Dixon.
Yeah, we don't have to say thank you to Ryan. We moved on to Pasadena.
Yeah.
So I'll accept.
He's dead to us.
Withdraw that, thank you, he left.
Yeah.
Clear cake.
Committee reports. Is there anything from the Fire Station Ad Hoc Committee?
No, not this month.
Budget Committee?
We don't have.
We don't have anything to
No.
report. And the Chiefs Evaluation Committee doesn't have anything to report.
My only concern is you asked for my notes, and I don't think you're going to read my scribble, so just to keep in
Brown Act.
Brown Act, green zone, do we have agreement with the other board members that I can talk to Eric after?
Why don't you just do track changes?
I just scribbled on here. Well, I could do that, but
I
I don't
know,
want to
I know.
have, I don't want to have discussions outside the board meeting if any of you are going to be if you've talked, I don't want to create any Brown Act. So can we be Brown Act buddies for me to give that to him, or I could give it to him during the meeting here?
I would say put it in track change and you and I can be Brown Act buddies on
Yeah, like
editing this.
within the PDF document, you can highlight and add commentary specifically to what you want.
Is it a
right?
PDF?
Well,
Or I can send
this is
you
in the
Word.
Okay,
PDF.
I
or
can do
send
track
it,
changes.
yeah,
if
in
you-
Word.
I just wanted to set up,
I can send it,
Brown
I can
Act.
send it to you in Word and you can edit it
I'd be happy.
and then
Mm-hmm.
I will revise it and we'll bring it back for a second look at our August meeting.
All right, I just wanted to clarify the Brown Act logistics.
Okay.
Thank you.
Chief's monthly report.
Okay, June was a pretty busy month for us. Some of the notable incidents we had last month were mutual aid response to Gopher Lane in Samoa. It was a structure fire. We had a major injury traffic collision on the 2000 block of 11th Street that resulted, it was pretty, pretty rough one where I believe the car was stolen and ended up going into a Mission Linen van and doing some significant damage to both vehicles and some major injuries. Same night, after midnight, we had a fatal traffic collision out at Bayside Grange. And we also had a commercial structure fire, which was extinguished by a neighboring business. We recognized that earlier tonight.
By Andrew.
We did have CAL FIRE station coverage. The crew covered and responded to multiple CAL FIRE incidents while they were there. And it generated almost $57,000 of fees from CAL FIRE to us. Major injury traffic collision on the 19th, again, US Highway 101 and Bayside Cutoff. And then on the 27th, we had simultaneous structure fires, which was the first one was a barn fire up on Wagon Jack Lane, which was a total loss. It had about a $40,000 value. It was empty. The residential structure fire on Ward Street, Manila, total loss with about a $90,000 loss to that, with a civilian casualty with smoke inhalation. Also lost 2 pets in that fire. It taxed all the local resources within our area, and there were multiple agencies unable to respond for mutual aid. They weren't able to fill their resources as well. You can see through our monthly incident count, we had a total of 14 fires. Obviously, the majority of our calls are still medical aids, with about 49%, or 140 calls last month on that. Pre-incident value, we had a little over $14 million worth of property with only, well, that should be $130,000 in losses, typo. Not a lot of mutual aid given, not a lot received either, but our overlapping incidents were about 36%, so that was up. And again, our average response time for us, which is actually really good, is just over 4 minutes. Station signs have been mounted on the stations. I think they look pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nothing new to report on the new engine. We participated in a pre-wildfire season planning workshop, which it was a weekend of fire season, and there were already a whole bunch of fires going on. Staffing, the second assistant chief position still remains vacant. We do have an open engineer recruitment for one vacancy right now. We're anticipating testing in mid-August. As Marcus mentioned earlier, all staff completed their required fit for duty medical evaluations. I was placed on, it's called the CICCS committee, but I was placed as the Northern Humboldt County Special District Representative to the California Incident Command Certification System. And what that is, it serves to ensure that all the county firefighters meet the necessary certifications and qualifications within the incident command system, such as strike team leader, division group supervisor, safety officer, and so on. It's made up of several representatives throughout the county. Could be local government, state, federal. The total regular, where am I at here? Our acting hours, we had company officers that acted 94.5 hours. Duty officer, they participated, did 72 hours of acting duty officer hours. And our assistants by hire, we had 236 straight time hours with 260 overtime hours. Looking at our training highlights, had about 31 hours of fire suppression and a lot of miscellaneous training, EMS training. All of our apparatus were in service with minor maintenance issues with it, nothing that was taken out of service for an extended time. McKinleyville Fire Station, we secured a contract to have the back parking lot to be resealed and striped. It's starting to deteriorate from the weather, and it's just time to reseal it. So that'll be coming up soon, hopefully. Matterhorn Station, nothing to report. Arcata Station, the roof was cleaned and inspected. I believe you said that you're rotating, Ross? You're rotating apparatus through for 6-month service rotations?
Yes.
Okay, and that's ongoing, right?
Yep.
That was the Arcata station?
This one, yeah.
How was it?
They didn't give any negative reports. They said that it was cleaned and inspected and to stay off of it for a while because it was going to be slick.
Okay.
But if baseballs keep hitting it, it might be a problem.
Yeah.
So on the McKinleyville station, the back parking lot, is that something that comes to the board for approval, or is
It was budgeted for.
Okay.
You remember signing up on that?
I think we did approve it back.
We did.
It's been several months.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
It's been a minute.
Yeah.
Let's see.
No, I don't remember doing that.
Many months ago.
I think it was a twofer.
Fire recovery, we had $200 come in last month for insurance claims, and inspection fees were almost $1,400. I don't know if Alyssa would like to talk to your credentials.
I actually wanted to speak on the training note. At last month's board meeting, we wanted to mention that the district actually sent me down to Windsor for a week of car seat certification installation training. So there's been a whole week of 8-hour classes down there doing car seat installations. So now I can do that for the district. And we've been advertising it. I haven't had anybody come by, but I did have a meeting today with the county. It's like she's like in charge of all of the car seat stuff, and we talked about some events that are happening throughout the year where I can be a technician and participate in that. So I just wanted to mention that. And yeah, I can talk about prevention stuff if you like.
So you spent 40 hours
40 hours.
on car seats.
Dude, they're so difficult. Are you kidding?
It's so much harder. And what I found was that there's almost a 90% fail rate with people installing their own. So essentially my job is to see how they installed it, take it out, show them how to install it, take it out again and have them install it, because the liability needs to be on the parent, not on me, but I want to make sure they're doing it right. So let's see. So for Matt's info here, the fire inspector's office, there were 449 total units expected with only 7 fails as far as the complexes go. And just to note this, a fail could just be 1 unit. It could be 1 unit's non-working smoke detector and the whole apartment complex fails. So that's just something to note on here. As far as my office for fire prevention specialist, if you look at I'm not going to read them all off, but there's a lot of inspections I've been doing, been taking them on my own. I did a lot of the fireworks booth storage inspections this year. We didn't have any issues in our county with fireworks, thank goodness. And I've been doing a lot of the event inspections as well. So Ferry Festival, fire dances, Oyster Festival, 4th of July, all those have gone good. Training, so I've been doing a lot of the NFA online prerequisite courses for courses that I want to take at NFA moving forward. So I did testing and evaluation of water supplies and also strategic community risk reduction. So I'm in the middle of another community risk reduction class right now. And then did a couple of fire extinguisher trainings for Northern Emeralds, which is a local cannabis company. They're really on top of their safety for their group, so I appreciate that. And then just our social media has been doing great. The awards given to Becky and Justin at the last board meeting got almost 7,000 views.
Nice.
Pony Express Days got 4,500. It was an image of Evenson at the car accident on the 101. It was just a post that said firefighters do more than just fight fire. That got almost 6,000 views as well. So it's like these small things have a big impact for sure. And then this website analytics at the bottom is through Google. I'm not sure how accurate it is, but I just gave us a little screenshot so you can see where it says Arcata Fire District. That's our homepage. Employment opportunities, so people are looking at that. People are going to the board meeting pages, and people are looking at our staff. So that's a little.
I noticed you don't have my photo on there.
Tony made.
It doesn't say looking at Tony, it says looking for staff.
Sorry, the PIO report didn't say that. That'll be
PIO
next
stuff.
month's report.
Your
Tony.
monthly spread on.
Yeah.
But yeah, he did get a beautiful photo in front of the journal. He's the article that none of us.
One deer and it all goes to your head, man.
Guys,
I'm telling
you
you.
did this to me.
Have your agent call us.
Are there
Thanks, Elizabeth.
Are there any director matters?
I just wanted to point out, we have a completely new crew at that table. And after being here for, I don't know, 7 years, it's like the first time, there's like all new faces. So welcome. Thank you for being here. This was a really good transition. It was well done. So we have full confidence in our new crew.
For now.
Anything from,
Nothing for me.
okay.
Yeah, I don't have anything.
I just want to once again acknowledge our public information officer and the press releases and things like that show up regularly, and Lost Coast Outpost and Mad River Union and Redhead Black Belt. I don't do Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff, but I do look at those others and I see them, and I think that it serves the district well.
Thank you.
Agreed.
Appreciate that.
With that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Second.
Adjourned.
Third.